Welcome to Global One Media's Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Swido. Joining me today is Paul Ténière. He's the Vice President of Exploration at TRU Precious Metals. They're a mining exploration company that's listed on Canada's TSX Venture Exchange as well as in Frankfurt. The company's stock is also traded over the counter in the United States. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Michael.
So I understand TRU has been prospecting for gold, copper, and other precious metals in Newfoundland. And for those of us who aren't Canadian, that's a large island off of Canada's east coast. And the latest surveys have come back with some very promising results. So could you fill us in on the highlights?
Sure. Yeah, we've been prospecting and doing soil sampling and other sort of surface exploration work on Golden Rose, our project in Newfoundland, for the past summer. And we've looked at prospecting in areas that haven't been looked at in the past, and that includes along what we call the Cape Ray-Valentine Lake Shear Zone. These two shear zones are host gold and also base metals. So we happen to have both of those shear zones on our property. So one of them is more dominant in copper and gold, and the other one is more dominantly gold.
That's fantastic. We're going to get to the samples, the results in just a moment. But for those of us who are not miners, and I should point out you're a geologist with more than 25 years experience. So could you briefly just give us a primer on how the surveying takes place? I mean, what happens? You identify a promising site, drill out some bedrock, then send it to the lab?
Yeah, so in this case, this is a project that has had a bit of exploration over the past sort of 25 to 30 years. When TRU took it over, it was still sort of considered early stage. And what we've done is look at historical work, especially from more recent operators, and looked at areas that show some sort of anomalies for gold, copper, silver, and many other metals. And so when we go in, we typically we'll have some idea of what those anomalies will be, and we'll send in us prospectors who will basically go in the woods and go up the creeks and start looking for outcrops or subcrops, we call it, that may show sulfides, which may contain gold and silver and copper, as I said. So it's basically boots on the ground. And then from there, it usually expands on to more soil sampling, so looking more on a regional sense. And looking for a large sort of anomalies across a larger area. Eventually, with that and even a little bit of geophysics, you eventually set up some drill targets. And we've done that at a few spots in Golden Rose over the last 2 years. But essentially, that's the sort of cycle to get to a drilling stage.
I love hiking, and it sounds absolutely gorgeous. So if you need anyone to help with the prospecting, let me know and I'll fly on out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is beautiful, beautiful part of the world.
So I understand you all took bedrock samples from 3 locations in your Golden Rose project area. And I got to say, Golden Rose is a great name. And I should point out that your company owns 100% of that site. So, I mean, that's fantastic. And the results that you got, from what I understand, it means that they were good. And that means your prospecting was spot on. So tell us what happens next.
So, what we did is towards the end of the summer, we went to areas that hadn't been explored that much in the past. And so we needed to fill in sort of some of the gaps along those parts of the shear zones. And so one of our prospectors did discover an outcrop with a large amount of copper sulfides. And so from there, we're going to go back into that area and start walking more to the northeast and to the southwest of that location. And then along Victoria Lake, which is more to the eastern side of Golden Rose, we've also kind of followed up and found some samples with some significant gold numbers in them. Some of them are known anomalies, but others are sort of new and surprises. So we're planning on going back in as well and continue along that. So it's a large property. It's a little over 240 square kilometers. So as you can imagine, it's a lot of ground to cover. But what we do is we've really fine-tuned based on geophysics and also looking at satellite imagery and historical compilation work to really fine-tune those areas so that it's not really a needle in a haystack so much as just following up on those anomalies. So that's the plan. And we keep getting surprised. We keep finding more copper and more gold in these outcrops, which is great news for us going forward.
That's fantastic. And I mean, you highlight there's a new target area that could be potentially rich with critical minerals. So tell us a bit more about that and how it fits in with your modeling.
Yeah, so if you look at our past work, we did a lot of work in an area called Jacobs Pond, which is to the just to the west of that, more central part of the project. In fact, it's an area that we actually drilled in 2022, and that area is rich in critical minerals, and more so than gold. And so what we think is that this along the structure extends to the northeast over where we discovered these new outcrops and where we discovered these new copper anomalies. And so our what we're going to be trying to do is to try to connect the dots between these two areas. So they're not very far from each other, probably less than 10 kilometers. So it's just a matter of going in and again prospecting. Some of that ground, some of that area is a bit steep ground, so it'll take it a little bit more challenging, but it's nothing that our team hasn't encountered in the past. Everything is accessible by road or trail. We don't need helicopters at Golden Rose, so it's just a matter of going in. We even use boats, especially we have few large lakes, and we'll basically use boats to access a lot of these areas. So it's really at the moment is to connect the dots between known anomalies and known targets, Marks Pond, Jacobs Pond, and also we're working towards the northeast in a target we call Ridge House, which is very high in gold. We did collect a sample this past summer that came back about 56 grams per ton gold. So this is a known target, but what we're again trying to do is to connect between these targets to see if there is an extended amount of gold across that area. And it's roughly about 4 to 5 kilometers in length between these two targets.
So you mentioned connecting the dots. What's the timeline for that?
Well, we are going to be back in field this fall, so to follow up on a lot of these and to continue prospecting and even some soil sampling. So again, we are going to be doing that. The long term is to create several targets that we have that are drill ready. So, for instance, we've done a lot of work in the past year at Marks Pond. We have the newly discovered Northcott Gold Zone. We've done channel sampling, trenching all through that area, and prior to that had been prospecting and soil sampling. And so those areas are what we consider drill ready. So you could put a drill in the ground and drill them. But what we want to do is to have several locations, especially to the northeast of the project, that are again drill ready. So that'll be the focus of our fall program is to firm up those areas, to bring up the confidence in where we drill.
Fantastic. But this program is all about investing. So I'm wondering, as TRU grows its pipeline of gold and critical mineral prospects, what do you think investors need to know?
I think the one unique thing about TRU is that it's sandwiched between two large projects. One of them is the Marathon Gold Project, which is, for those that follow the amount of work going on in Central Newfoundland, that's the next big gold mine that's going to open up in Eastern Canada. So it'll be the largest gold mine in Atlantic Canada once it opens up. And at the very tip of our claims is within less than 10 kilometers. So we're seeing similar geology to what they're seeing, but slightly different at the same time. And then to the southwest, Matador Mining is really expanding on their Cape Ray project. And so their claims actually touch on our southwestern claims. And so we're basically sandwiched between these two projects. With regards to Cape Ray, they have a national resource on the southern part of their project. They are doing exploration on the northeast part. So again, sort of getting close to us. So the one thing with us though is that we are in a unique part of the geologically wise in that part of Newfoundland, in the sense that we have a split between these shear zones, and so we have, in my opinion, a lot of areas that are potential targets and potential anomalies for gold and critical minerals, just based on the fact of the geology and the structure in that part of Newfoundland. So it means that you get a lot of banging for your buck with TRU when it comes to the amount of potential areas for gold and critical minerals.
Well, we'll definitely look forward to more updates on those targets that you mentioned. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today, to share that primer with us on how you conduct exploration, and if I could say so, drilling through those results. So I wish you luck with the next stages.
Thanks very much, Michael. It's a pleasure to talk to you.